Welcome back. In this session, I want to teach you a little bit about tables in ArcGIS. And one of the simplest way to make tables is as a text file. So here's an example. I made a text file called soilsamples.txt. And the first row of your text file should have the field names. So we'll have a field name soil ID. Our second column will be count. Our third field will be value, and our fourth field will be texture. And then basically for soil ID, we have values 1, 2, and 3. Count, we have values of 3, 2, and 5. And then this value is the pH, so pH of 6.3 to pH of 4.5. And then texture would be what's the texture, sandy loam, silt, and then a muck soil. So we can save this, and then in ArcMap, we would just add to our table of contents that text file. So once we add it, we could open it, and then basically we have what's called a standalone table in ArcGIS. And typically if you have a field like count, you'd like that to hold whole numbers, so the type for that field is going to be a long integer. So anytime you want whole numbers, make your field a long integer field, as opposed to if you have a field containing decimal places and values to the right of the decimal place, always make that a double precision field. And then the third type of field we have is a text field. So this field, if we look at the properties, is a string or a text field. Okay, so let's say we want to change the texture from sandy loam to loamy sand. Whenever you do a field calculation with text fields, it has to be a permanent standalone table. So here we've got the field calculator has been disabled. So what we need to do is save this virtual table to a permanent standalone table that ArcGIS understands. So what we can do is use a tool called copy row. Okay, and whenever you're outputting to a folder, so in this case we're outputting to a test folder inside the NRM 338 folder, always give your table a .dbf extension. If you don't give your table name a .dbf extension, by default it's saved to a really old-fashioned format called an info table, which has lots of problems. So we'll give this extension .dbf. And then we can execute this tool, copy rows. So now we've got our permanent standalone table, and it's a dbase table. So now we can do things like field calculations with the table. So once again, we can open the table, and we want to change sandy loam to loamy sand, so we can use the field calculator. So we select this row, right mouse click field calculator, and the key is whenever you're working with a field that has text values, you need to start your field calculation with a double quote. So that basically says, okay, here comes the start of our text field. And we're going to change it to sandy loam, from sandy loam to loamy sand. So loamy sand. And then when you're done with entering your text, put another double quotes to signal that's the end of the text field. And then OK will change that value to loamy sand. So the only tricky part doing field calculations with text fields is you have to have a double quote to start your string and a double quote to end your text string. Okay, another way to create a standalone table is to use Excel. And one of the nice things with Excel is that ArcGIS understands formulas in Excel. So for example, here we've got an Excel spreadsheet, and we need to get decimal degrees so we can use a formula. So basically take this value minus this value, the minutes divided by 60, minus the seconds divided by 60, and that would give us this value. So once we have that formula built, we could drag it to apply it to the other cells in this column. Likewise, for latitude, it would be the y degrees plus 45 minutes divided by 60 plus 0 seconds divided by 3,600. So it would give us, in decimal degrees, 64 degrees 45 minutes is the same thing as 64.75 degrees. So basically ArcGIS understands formulas from Excel. So that's nice. So then in ArcGIS we could just add data, and we would just go to our Excel spreadsheet and then specify which worksheet we want to add. So in this case we want to add the first worksheet. And then we could look at what's in this virtual table. So now we've got latitude and longitude expressed in decimal degrees. Okay, and once again we could use the copy rows to take this virtual table and make it into a permanent DBF table. So if I go to the results tab, we've used copy rows once. So this time we'll select our worksheet from Excel and we'll call this table2.dbf. Okay, so in this case we want to get rid of these fields and keep our ID field and our longitude and latitude field. So we could do it one by one, right mouse clicking and deleting fields, but it's easier to use a geoprocessing tool called the Delete Field Geoprocessing tool. So what we could do is select all the fields and then uncheck the ones we don't want to drop or delete. So we don't want to delete ID, we don't want to delete longitude, and we do not want to delete latitude. So everything with a check will be deleted when we press the OK button in this geoprocessing tool. So OK. And the fields have been deleted. The other thing you might want to do is display your fields in some manner. So if we right mouse click and go to Properties, under the Numeric button, we could say Display 5 to the right of the decimal, Show 1,000 separators, and Pad with zeros. OK. So then basically that field, everything lines up. And we could do the same thing with our latitude field. So go to Properties, Numeric, 5 to the right of the decimal, Show 1,000 separators, and Pad with zeros. And everything will line up 5 to the right of the decimal place. Okay, occasionally you would want a field that's sorted. So say, for example, we want to sort this field going from smallest to largest in terms of latitude. So what we can do is run a geoprocessing tool named sort. And once again, I'm sure to give an extension .dbf so it's not an info table when I output it. So we're going to sort based on this latitude field. And the table is permanently sorted based on the latitude field. Okay, and if we've got a table that has one field representing the X value and another field representing the Y value, we can create what's called a point event layer from that table. So we use a geoprocessing tool called MakeX. Okay, so the tool is MakeXY event layer. And we would specify which field represents the X value for every row, and then which field represents the Y value for each row. And it's going to be basically a virtual layer, and we could specify what the coordinate system these two fields represent. So we would go press that button, and the coordinate system, let's say, is geographic coordinates NAD 83. And then and we have a virtual layer for those 3 points that were basically given the XY coordinates from our sorted table. So this would be the X coordinates for the 3 points, and this would be the Y coordinates for the 3 points. And once again, this is a virtual layer. What we might want to do is save it to a permanent GIS point shapefile. So to do that, we could use a tool called Copy Features. So our event layer is our input, and then our output will be 3points.shape. So it'll be a permanent shapefile, and it's in this test folder. And then OK. So then we'll have a permanent shapefile. Okay, so we've got these 3 points. Let's say we want to add 5 fields to these 3 points in this shapefile. The easiest way to add 5 fields is to use the Add Field tool in batch mode. So basically the first thing we'll do is find that tool, and then right mouse click on the tool and select Batch. So this is true of all geoprocessing tools, that for any geoprocessing tool you can run it in batch mode. So then basically what we could do is specify our input table is our 3 points, and then the name of our field. So I'll say my first field will be field A. And that will be a double precision field. So let's say we want, for this same 3 points table, we want to make a field B, field C, field D, etc. What you can do is just select that first row and then hit add row, and then add row, add row, add row. And then we'll just change this A to a B, and B, A to a C, and D, and E. So that will create 5 fields. They'll all be double precision fields, and we just say OK. And indeed, it did create these 5 new fields, and they are all double precision fields. So that's an easy way to create many fields at once, is just by right mouse clicking on the tool and then selecting batch. So basically add field, right mouse click, and select batch. Okay, so that's enough about tables. In the next session, I'll teach you a little bit about point features in ArcGIS.